Welcome to Information Week's Valley View. I'm David Berlin.
And I'm Fritz Nelson.
And Fritz, it's been about 4 weeks since we last got together on Information Week's Valley View. We've got a lot of things that have happened since then. We'll get to that in a minute. We've got a bunch of people here in our in-studio audience, plenty of you watching online, and we've got a great show lined up for today. We're going to start things off with Proton Media CEO Ronald J. Burns. After that, we've got a hot startup that's in the social networking and big data space, DataSift. We'll be talking with the CEO of that company, Rob Bailey. And then after that, we're going to bring on one of the companies that is exciting to both you and I. It's ARM, and they are one of the companies that makes the technology that's found in most of the mobile technology that you're using today. That's the tablets, the smartphones, and we'll be talking with the lead mobile strategist for that company, James Bruce. After that, we've got batting cleanup, Zynga's Chief Technology Officer, Alan Leinwan. He'll be talking about not only Zynga and all the great things they're doing, but also something called Z Cloud. Now, usually we also wrap the show up with a couple neat little things. We give away a bunch of cool gadgets, not only to members of our in-studio audience and people who are watching online, and for those of you watching, we'll tell you how you can win. But we also single out, randomly that is, we single out a startup from our audience, and we give them the opportunity to make their best elevator pitch to both me and Fritz and you get to decide whether or not that company is worth your time and money. So Fritz, we usually start the show off with a little recap of what's happened since the last time we got together. The floor is yours. What's happened in the last month?
All right, a lot of news, but one of the big pieces of news is that Microsoft recently shelled out $1 billion for more than 800 AOL patents. That portfolio included patents related to online advertising, mobile handsets, and the rights to include this memorable feature for Microsoft Outlook email users.
You've got mail.
Microsoft also bought patents for putting annoying compact discs inside of magazine subscriptions, and it then threw in Ariana Huffington, who will personally berate users who exceed their Hotmail quota. Finally, Microsoft also has the rights to a never-used cross-dressing version of the AOL Running Man. New IBM CEO Virginia Rometty was entertaining clients at the latest Masters golf tournament at Augusta National Country Club, an all-male club that traditionally grants a membership to its main sponsors' CEOs. But in this case, Rometty didn't receive an invitation, causing a bit of a stir. Club officials explained that it wasn't an anti-female snub. They are just pissed-off Lotus Notes users. The New York Times reported that AT&T is changing its slogan. The old AT&T slogan was, "We drop more calls." Now, the new slogan is, I guess it's...
Rethink possible.
That's the old slogan. Rethink possible. Right? Isn't that what I said?
No, that's the new slogan.
Oh, no, the new slogan.
The old new slogan.
The new slogan is actually, we do more with what you do. Or we do what you do. Or something like that. I don't know. Is it something like this?
AT&T.
Yeah, it's we do more with what you do. Or it's, I don't know, something like that. Well, meanwhile, T-Mobile is ratcheting up its game as well. Its spokesperson, Carly, that helpful, happy, magenta-clad sprite who charmingly talked up T-Mobile, has an alter ego now. In the company's new ads, Carly dons motorcycle leathers and a Ducati, which T-Mobile says symbolizes the speed and capabilities of our 4G network. Or maybe a recent tryst with Secret Service agents? Republican presidential nominee in waiting, Mitt Romney, took to Google Plus recently using the service's Hangout feature to hold a town hall. Upon entering the Hangout, he told the audience, "I love it here. The servers are all the right size." One observer noted he was running Google Plus not on an iPad, but on an Etch-a-Sketch. All right, it's time for a little rant. It's time to play my favorite game, the one where every question the industry asks has the exact same answer. For the past few years, that answer has been the cloud. Today's answer, big data. It's everywhere. And do you know why? Do you think it's just because it's big? Yeah, that's what I thought too. But it turns out that it's just really popular to say. Big data. Say it with me, everyone. Big data. See, isn't that fun? Information Week has been writing about big data for a long time, and during that time, I really did think I knew what it meant. We were talking Hadoop and MapReduce, big data sets, sentiment analytics, and even though that one sounded a little like the sort of language you toss around at a cocktail party while wearing Gucci loafers with no socks, I kind of liked it. So how big is big data? Will I know it when I see it? Is that big data in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? What if it's not quite big data? Maybe then it's demi-data or modest data? Do big government and big oil and big tobacco have big data? If Starbucks analyzes big data, do they call it venti data? What about McDonald's? Do they supersize it? Last week, a log management company went public, Splunk, and its stock price doubled in a day and was valued at more than $3 billion, all because it's now calling itself big data. This is madness. Even SQL is getting bastardized. We had MySQL, fine, but then there was NoSQL, and now we actually have NewSQL. What's next, Big SQL? Oh, right, Google just introduced BigQuery. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard the term metrosexual. Well, people who are obsessed with their personal data are now called datasexuals. I'm not making this up. These are people who track their movements, their calorie intake, their exercise, their sleep. What's next then? Big datasexuals? Instead of the sprightly Carly as the spokesperson, maybe we'll bring back Notorious B.I.G. from the dead? How about we tone it down a notch? How about we go back to just data? And let's stop making such a big deal about big data. All right, finally, a Portland man named John Brennan stripped nude last week at an airport TSA screening checkpoint, doing so as a protest of what he calls an invasion of his privacy. Now, I too feel as if my privacy has been invaded, David, first by Facebook and then Apple and Google, and I'm sick of it, and in protest, I'm going to strip right here on this show.
Whoa, big fella.
What?
Take your hands off the belt buckle, okay?
I'm just upset,
Put
man.
the belt
I'm
buckle
upset.
down. Have
I'm
a
upset,
seat.
too.
Take a breath. Take a breath. Fix your tie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just upset. Privacy.
We'll be right back.
So we attend Interop. This is a great opportunity to meet a lot of great enterprise end users, potential business partners. It's always great to see what's kind of coming next, and this good mixture of technology companies. I mean, you can't. It's rare to bring that group together very often, and you can really only get that here.
Oh, it's the same thing, basically. There's new companies every year, there's new technologies, and in order to be effective, you have to understand what they are, who the players are, what they do, who the market leaders are, and industry leaders, and, sorts of things like that.
Up next, Proton Media's CEO, Ronald J. Burns.
Proton Media is the developer of Protosphere, a business collaboration software platform built on the Microsoft UCC stack with Link and SharePoint integration. The platform aims to allow organizations to create an always-on virtual workspace where they can bring the right people and data together at any moment to increase the speed and effectiveness of knowledge transfer, learning, collaboration, and retention of business-critical information. Users create avatars and then work collaboratively in a series of interconnected shared spaces, virtual meeting rooms, classrooms, auditoriums, and labs. Please welcome Ronald Burns, CEO of Proton Media.
Well, Ron, thanks very much for joining us here on Information Week's Valley View. You know, there's a lot of companies out there in the collaborative space, and obviously you're diving into a very crowded space. We're trying to figure out just exactly what it is that sets you apart from everybody else. What's the big USP here?
Well, it's interesting you guys were making fun of big data and how big data is overdone at this point. The premise of our business is that big data is not enough. You have to have big people around that data to make decisions.
Wait. Big people?
Big people. We're talking about
I'm
big
gonna
people
add that
today.
to my
you know?
list.
Because content without context is meaningless. Data without interpretation is just data, right? So what we did was try and create a very compelling, immersive environment that is embedded in the data that we use every day, which is why we chose to integrate into systems like SharePoint, Microsoft Lync, Outlook itself, where many of us spend our days.
Okay, so you had some friends. We were talking before. One of the issues is that as we get more complicated with our collaborative solutions, they require more setup. So we took a look at your solution a little bit. It's very immersive, but what worries us about something like that is the setup time. Today, we use video conferencing solutions here around our company, and you'd be surprised at how many times just before we get going, either the technology fails or there's a little bit of a cultural barrier we have to get over. You know, hey, what color are you wearing? What's that nice tie you've got?
You got a haircut.
Yeah, got a haircut. Whereas when we use the simpler applications, we get right to the business of collaborating. So, so how do you manage that?
Well, I think that's an interesting premise. I think we feel that the enterprise user does not want to be on camera all day for every situation. You two are very handsome, so handle the camera quite well. But there are average-looking people in the enterprise workforce. And as such, to be a perfectly coiffed avatar, but at home in their pajamas when they're talking to Singapore, has some value. I also think if you look at the way, for example, Cisco arrays a large video call, once you get beyond 16, 18 endpoints, you're dealing with a pretty sad episode of the Brady Bunch, and we're here to save the world from that.
Save the world from Brady Bunch.
Well, it was a good show back in the 60s, but we want to move on from that, right?
Well, one question I have, and we'll take a look at how this works, is you're using 3D, you're using avatars. You know, we kind of had this story a few years ago with Second Life. I mean, maybe it still exists, but now we're taking Second Life to the enterprise. How's that going?
Well, I wouldn't say this is exactly like Second Life. There are a lot of 3D things out there. There's the Xbox, there's PlayStation, there's a variety of social games. I know you're going to have Zynga on later at this show. So the notion of gaming-like environments, I think, has validity for sure. I think the difference in terms of what we've done is we've embedded this into the Microsoft collaboration stack. So each room is an always-on Microsoft Lync phone call. The data, as you drag it in and out of the rooms, goes into SharePoint. So these big investments that the CIO has made at the enterprise level are preserved in this case, rather than it being a system from the outside. And we know that CIOs like to preserve the investments that they've made.
Well, let's take a look at the demo. Give us kind of tour of generally what you're going to see when you walk in.
Okay, so the first thing you notice is I'm in an environment right now. My colleague Tom Bavino is with me. Tom, how are you doing today?
Hey, Ron, how are you?
So each room or each space is an always-on Microsoft Lync phone call. So you notice that we're ingesting Lync Presence, Lync Text Chat over here. And we also, for you, we have a name on the list to make you feel comfortable.
Okay, thank you.
Very simple. And by the way,
is it a big name?
It's big name, big data,
okay,
big people.
Thank you.
Right? So, and to your point about simplicity, to move around the environment is a very simple thing. I can change my camera angle with my mouse wheel here, and I can gesture very easily here. You see my colleague Tom is with me. And if I want to gesture, those gestures are very available to me right here below.
You can't punch him, right?
I can shoot him in the eye with this laser pointer if I want to be rude. But you know, we try not to do that in general. Tom, can you say a word over Lync Voice over IP, if you will?
Sure thing. How's it going? How are you?
So you see that when Tom talks, you have very, very high quality voice over IP. That's because each room is literally an always-on Lync conference call. And by the way,
we're doing this over the internet, by the way. We're not doing this over a private link of any sort.
No, we're not. This is an internet application, and each room is literally a Lync phone call. So if you think about hardware manufacturers who've taken rooms and put conference call devices into them for years, we flipped that notion to some extent and made the virtual room the always-on call. One of the ideas here is that work being a series of time-bound events, the conference calls is from 2 to 3, or the video conferences from 4 to 5, is not an efficient way to work. In this environment, you can array a series of business processes together in one collaborative space. And so the persistence and the identity and the value of the spaces where you embed business processes is one of the values our customers see. We also have the ability, by the way, to share other content types. And you'll notice when I clicked on that surface there, my heads-up display gave me the available functions. I can do my application sharing and my annotations there. And we also support a high-quality video of all sorts. So to be able to watch video together, again, we're not anti-video. We think video is appropriate, but to be able to watch TV together, for lack of a better term, is a very valuable thing. And to make that a user-created kind of scenario. So I can upload e-learning courseware if I want to share a piece of courseware with my colleagues.
Welcome to Animos Training Module 2.
And we even actually, advocate sharing and watching your show together because God knows it's got a pretty opening graphic. I really like
That's a big show.
It's a big show about big people like you guys. Yeah. The other thing in terms of the value of 3D is how do you handle big data? Let's go back to big data. Tom, let's teleport out to the data visualization room, okay?
Sure thing.
So this is a room that exists in the system.
That's right.
And it had a video screen on it, so you could look at a video together. And you're going to a different room now.
We're going to a different room now where we're going to talk a bit about how you put big people and big data together in the same shared space.
Those are two data sexuals.
That's right. Well, they're certainly data sets. You may have the wrong vowels and consonants mixed up there together, but
I didn't make up the
it's
term.
a good show. I appreciate the term. So here, by way of example, is a protein folding algorithm that my laser pointer is pointing to. So big pharmaceutical companies and research organizations would traditionally do a data visualization that maybe looks something like that, where they'd be pulling that big data set from a Cray supercomputer or something like that. Our view as a cloud collaboration platform is that you can ingest that big data source from a cloud source, but the people can look at it together in a socialized way.
How is it being ingested?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
We are taking this, we're Microsoft partners and working on the Azure platform.
Okay, so that's data that exists in Azure's cloud, pulling it in.
There's data in Azure's cloud, but what was it that created that visualization of the data? Was there some other application that you developed that runs in the cloud that integrates with this platform, or does your platform have built into it the ability to take in any sort of data set and interpret it and know how to make it, turn it into a visualization like the one we just saw?
Yeah, we're working very hard, and this is not fully baked. The data viz piece is not fully baked on our end, but in this case, you see, we're working very hard to ingest a variety of data types. It could be financial data, medical data, but the reason I show you this kind of environment is the value of 3D is to show complex data, big data, if you will, with big people as well around it.
I see my DNA back there.
That's big DNA right there.
You want to stay away from that DNA, by the way. Trust me. So.
But the idea is that it's a 3D visualization. This platform is giving that ability.
Right. The value of 3D is when you have a complex problem that is a lot of data, you can think about it in multi-dimensions, which, we're not born into an Excel spreadsheet. We're born into 3 dimensions, and we spend our life learning how to be 2D.
Well, I want to circle back to the question I asked earlier. You've got these visualizations in the environment. You've got the video showing up on the screen. There's some amount of setup that has to go into that in order to prepare the environment for the meeting you're about to have. That's the thing that worries me is that the more complicated, today we sort of halfway through the video conferencing solution not working, we all decide let's bail out and just dial everybody up on the phone. So
that's fair. That's fair. Let's do a setup. Let's see how long that takes. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to set up we're going to build a new space on the fly. And by the way, one of the values of this product is we think people try and collaborate from Outlook. How many times have you done an email to 2, 3, 10 people, hit reply all 5 times? You're basically creating an unmoderated blog in that situation. One of the reasons we wanted to tie Protosphere to the Microsoft UCC stack is instead of doing an email mass chain, we can create a space. So if you have a project that you're going to work on and you assume that this is a valuable enough topic to build a persistent space, you can then go to this tool here. This is our Build Your Own World tool. And let's say we wanted to build a small collaboration space very quickly. Let's create a conference space. We could determine how many SharePoint boards we want in that space. We could pick our style. And we can name it Info Week. If I could type, of course. And our cloud on the back end literally creates that room on a persistent basis. Now it's done. If we go back into Protosphere, hey Tom, I just created a world called Info Week. Let's go take a peek at it, okay?
All right, I'll meet you there.
So now in our locations, in alphabetical order.
You need a room search.
Exactly right. Where did it go?
That's because Fritz and I are sitting here. We kill demos.
Do you?
Yes. Just our presence.
Well, in theory, it should be there.
Well,
Okay.
Well,
we're
So one last question while we're doing this is that, you know, it's obvious and noticeable you've integrated this tightly into the Microsoft collaborative environment.
right.
What about guys like us who are on Macs all the time?
We are working on an iOS version and a Mac version as we speak.
Okay. All right. Well, Ronald J. Burns, CEO of Proton Media.
Thank
Thanks
you for
very
your
much.
time. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
thank you.
One of the companies we partner with to help make a selection of the best new startup that we're going to feature here on Valley View is a company called Dealmaker Media. Dealmaker Media puts on a really great conference called Under the Radar. Fritz and I are the MCs of that event. It's taking place in the next 2 days. It'll be happening down in Silicon Valley. And here to tell us a little bit about the event is the director of Dealmaker Media, Heidi Isern, and she will also select the startup that we're going to feature here on Valley View. Heidi?
Great. Thanks, David. As David mentioned, we are the producers of the Under the Radar conference that is kicking off tomorrow. We're going to have 32 disruptive startups pitch their technologies to enterprise executives. We'd love to see you guys there. So if you go to our website, undertheradar.com, and register using the code VVIEW, you will get $100 off the registration price. One of the companies that we're pleased to have on our stage is called DataSift. DataSift is in our big data category. Now, Fritz was talking quite a bit about DataSift before. However, one line that he forgot to mention about big data was it's not the size of the data, but what you do with it. DataSift actually helps companies do something with their data by leveraging multiple social media streams and bringing them all into one platform. We have the CEO, Rob Bailey, here from DataSift to talk a little bit more about what their company does. Fritz and David, take it away.
Hey, Rob, thanks for joining us here on Information Week's Valley View. Great to have you.
Nice to be here.
I do like big data, by the way.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well, I hope that a lot of people like big data.
Okay, good.
Just want to dive
I
right
thought you
in.
might be mad at me.
Rob, I
No.
want to dive right in here because a lot of times when people are trying to figure out what a company does, they go to where? The website, right?
Yeah.
And they read through the copy on the website and try to make some sort of determination of whether the company is providing a solution that will be relevant to them. I'd like to read you some text from your own website, from your webpage, and maybe we can start the conversation off this way. So DataSift offers the most powerful and sophisticated tools for extracting value from social data. The amount of content that internet users are creating and sharing through social media is exploding. DataSift offers the best tools for collecting, filtering, and analyzing this data. So then on another page, those are the ends, all of the social network data that goes in. You have something called reporting. DataSift collects and presents real-time and historical usage data at the macro level of the cloud as well as the micro level of API calls. Root cause analyses of degradations in performance and utilization enable developers and their customers to troubleshoot your applications. Rob, who writes this stuff and what does it mean? Because I haven't been able to make any sense of this copy.
Great. Well, the good news is you're probably not our core target customer. Our core target customer typically is a relatively technical person, is typically a decision maker at a social media monitoring company, a business intelligence company, possibly a news organization or a finance organization. They usually have a fair amount of experience in working with big data and working with different APIs. So really the messaging that we put on our website is very targeted at them.
Okay.
So they tend to be highly technical, and a lot of what was in the different segments of the text that you covered, especially the reporting, is really messaged specifically to questions that we typically get asked during customer meetings.
Okay, so who do they work for? And then of what value to those companies is the solution that you're providing? What's the end game for them?
Sure. So typically the sales process in an organization, and it depends, typically our buyer might be a CIO or a CTO. So it's an executive level decision maker, possibly a founder or a CEO as well in smaller companies. They typically are senior on the executive team but have a fair amount of technical background. And usually, obviously, they will typically work for a CEO, for example. So the business side of an organization will typically go to the technical side with business-related challenges like we need to monitor social data or we need to monitor most social data sources. and then it's usually incumbent on the CIO or the CTO and their team to evaluate a lot of different options for how to do that.
And we're going to get into a demo of DataSift in a second, but one thing I want to understand is there are a lot of companies that get at social data. How do you get at it differently or better?
So it's an exploding space, and it's also very new. So I think a lot of companies are still trying to figure out exactly what they do. For us specifically, we focus on solving what we think is probably the hardest problem right now in big data, and specifically the big data that's being created from different social networks. And that's really around ingesting all of this data, managing it, and actually trying to derive value from it. So we ingest massive quantities of data from all these different social networks. We clean it, we normalize it, we pull in linked content from other sources, and then provide that back out to our customers in an easy-to-use API format with a bunch of different filters to derive more meaning from the data.
Okay, let's take a look at it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys, okay. So the first thing is obviously we'll start off with our website. So this is the website which you talked about with the copy that you really love.
It's on the homepage. That's
Excellent.
right.
So you would log in, and essentially what I'm going to do is take you guys to the core of what the DataSift product and service really is. So we ingest all of this data, clean it, normalize it. We do things like pull in all the content that are from associated links. So something like 1 in 5 tweets now on Twitter actually contains a link to an article somewhere else on the internet. And we think of the fact that Twitter actually produces something like 300 to 330 million tweets a day. That's a lot of linked content that you really need to bring in to get a complete picture of what's going on. So we will pull in those links or pull in the content for those links. And what you do is you actually create filters that enable you to specifically, in this sort of flood of information, pull out exactly what you're looking for.
So this would be a company that wants to understand, say, what people are saying about it or what particular trends are, but they have a very finite, they want to take a very finite view of that data. They don't just want to say, tell me everything happening about Coca-Cola.
Yeah, that would probably be kind of overwhelming. We're actually finding that the sophistication in corporate America and among social media monitoring companies is just accelerating at an incredible rate right now. And whereas a year or 2 or 3 years ago, companies were just doing basic keyword searches, so someone might have in the past looked for Coca-Cola, we're now finding that the kind of queries that are happening are things like, tell me everything about Coca-Cola that was positive, that was tweeted by people with a high clout score in New York on Tuesday night. Or tell me what everybody said about the Coca-Cola commercial during the Super Bowl.
Right.
So we're finding that people are doing very precise searches so that they can derive meaning more quickly. So we look at a lot of what we call time to insight, and so we help our customers by accelerating their time to insight.
So looking at the demo here, you have Apple negative, so it sounds like a lot of sentiment analysis going on. Is that the primary usage, or other? Yeah.
That's probably one of the most popular ones.
Right.
So there's a massive quantity of data being produced in social, and what we find is probably one of the first things that people want to see is it positive or negative? And by looking at all of the content being produced on social, you can, and doing a cut by positive or negative, you can draw some very interesting conclusions, especially when you overlay that with business events. So for example, if you were an investor in Apple, you could take a look at the sentiment of tweets, positive and negative, and derive some conclusion about what the market thought about it.
Now, before we got on the air, Apple announced its earnings.
Yes.
And in about 5 minutes, you set up this feed.
Yep.
Maybe less than 5 minutes. Seemed like 5 minutes. And this is the Apple negative feed.
Correct. Correct. So we are, I mean, as I said, right now our customers are relatively technical. So we have a language, and I'll show you a little bit about what this looks like. So that is just a few lines of code that have actually created the feed. So it's sort of like if you've ever coded in HTML or another language like that, it's about that level of complexity. We have a very active client services team that can actually create these filters for our customers. And so what we find a lot of times will happen with our customers, whether it's social media monitoring companies, business intelligence companies, news organizations, or in some cases financial institutions, they will typically have a technical team which work with our client services team to actually create these filters. And it's really amazing what you can do. What we're finding is that typically the business wants to ask very sophisticated questions. And in the past, with the technology that was available, you're only able to answer really give rudimentary answers. So someone might say, how did people like my ad? And the answer might be, well, you got a lot of tweets. And now we could actually help our customers provide much more sophisticated answers like, well, as it turns out, men like your ad more than women. Women, especially women with the high cloud score, really didn't like your ad. And when women were tweeting negatively about your ad, the reason why they were tweeting negatively about the ad is because they thought that the quality of the dialogue in the commercial was bad.
Now we were watching you providing like a real-time feed coming through, so you were sifting through everything that was happening, all the events that are happening out there on Twitter. I'm assuming Facebook as well.
Yes, we're just starting to work with Facebook now. Facebook's it's a very different animal because Twitter and Facebook are fundamentally very different social networks. And I think this is a great illustration of why it's so important to work with a platform provider like us that really understand the different nature of these different social networks. So Twitter is all about, I think of it as almost kind of a yelling out to the world, or maybe not yelling, but definitely broadcasting out to the world your points of view about certain things. And I think generally when we've interacted with Twitter users, there is a slightly lower expectation of privacy. People still don't want to be spammed to. They don't want their data being used for bad purposes. But inherent in the communication is, for example, I have close to 10,000 followers. When I tweet something out on Twitter, I'm expecting that is something that's accessible by 10,000 people. So I'll typically tweet out things like a newspaper article or something that's going, another great success from DataSift or something like that. Facebook's a little bit different. What we found is that a lot of the nature of the sharing on Facebook tends to be more personal. So personal family pictures, maybe comments between family members. And as such, I think, frankly, there's a higher expectation of privacy that people have on Facebook versus Twitter. And so we are definitely very respectful of that. We're always respectful of user privacy, but I think definitely, in particular, the different expectations people have.
Well, where I was going with that question was, you were talking about how you can identify that, well, this number of women said something positive about this versus the ones who said something negative. But you were showing a feed where you can kind of see the whole thing go by. Do you actually roll up the data into something meaningful? So let's say I set up 2 or 3 of those windows. One's looking at negative, one's looking at positive, and then off of that we can do some sort of totaling and build a pie chart and say, well, here's the whole population.
Dashboard of the data.
So do you do that as well, or is that up to the developer or the technical person who knows how to work DataSift in the organization to extract that and summarize it in a meaningful fashion?
There's about 3 great questions in there, and I'm going to try to get to all of them. So in terms of the analytics, you mentioned, you read some copy off our website. The analytics that we're being referred to are just specifically about the performance of our API. We are absolutely not an analytics company. It's a really tough business to be in. You have to be really good at what you do. We actually have a lot of great customers, like a NetBase, for example, one of the top social media monitoring companies, that are incredibly good at the application layer. We are a platform company. We're really good at managing large amounts of big data and mapping them together. You gave specifically the example of some tweets going by. So in the case of Twitter, it's a lot easier to aggregate data and, for example, to look at competitive data. In the case of Facebook, I think really the sharing tends to be a lot more focused specifically around companies' own fan pages. So Coca-Cola would want to, in a kind of a platform way, access all of the content that people have put up on their various fan pages around the world and derive sentiment. But usually there's a login, there's private admin accounts and things like that to be able to access all the data. So there's a much higher expectation of privacy that we are absolutely respectful of. In the case of Twitter, for example, if you're an employee from Coca-Cola, you could obviously go take a look and see what people are tweeting about on the Pepsi page. So there's a slightly lower expectation of privacy, and therefore there's more sharing of data involved.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time, and you can definitely check DataSift out on their website or also at Under the Radar later this week.
That's right. You'll be at the conference in a couple days?
We are honored to be a presenter at Under the Radar, and we're really looking forward to it.
All right, we'll see you there. We'd also like to present you with an official Information Week Valley View mug.
Awesome.
Just about everybody who gets on the show gets a mug. So if you want to get on the show, you gotta get. If you want to get the mug, you got to get on the show. So for those of you who want to get on the show, you have to pitch me or Fritz through Twitter, D. Berlind or F. Nelson. Rob, thanks very much for joining us.
It's an honor to be here.
Okay. Next. Next up, we have ARM's lead mobile strategist, James Bruce, joining our Information Week Vice President of Research, Art Whitman, at the Information Week Valley View whiteboard.
ARM Holdings is the world's leading semiconductor intellectual property supplier, and as such, is at the heart of the development of many digital electronic products. ARM is headquartered in Cambridge, UK, and with offices all over the world, employs over 2,000 people. The company's chips are found in the majority of smartphones and tablets in use today. James Bruce is the company's lead mobile strategist.
All right, I'm here with I'm here with James from ARM, and as mentioned in the lead up, your chips and designs are in thousands of different devices, but we're going to be talking mostly about smartphones today, and we thought we would have an opportunity to talk a little bit about what the future holds from ARM. So just give us a quick preview of one of the most important things that will be coming.
So one of the key things that you're going to see in smartphones in 2013 or end of this year is virtualization. And what we've done in our next generation part is on the Cortex A15, as well as increasing performance, increasing power efficiency through Big. LITTLE, we've put hardware virtualization in there. And the critical reason for that is that you've got this melding of your personal life and your enterprise life on the smartphone. So it can either be bring your own device to work, or it could be the fact that you're using your work device to actually access your personal life.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot of our audience that's familiar with virtualization. This sounds like an early stage of virtualization. We've been through an early stage of virtualization, and that early stage meant a little bit of hit performance and a lot more memory usage. So how does that compare with what we're doing here?
So I think the fundamental difference is when you're playing in the mobile space, obviously efficiency is incredibly important. And what this means is that the approach we've taken from actually implementing it on the processor and also how it's done in the software must be incredibly battery friendly. And I think the key thing is it's different from what you've seen in virtualization in the past, because what you've got to do is ensure that you're not repeating an entire OS between your consumer world and your enterprise world, but instead you're being very smart and just running enough of an OS to run your actual enterprise applications while running the complete host OS on your smartphone.
Okay, so in terms of performance hit, this is done in hardware, so we're not likely to see much of a performance hit. Is there one?
I mean, the performance hit is measured in a few percent. Obviously, if you're in the situation where you have one app in the consumer world that's consuming a lot of your CPU and an app in your enterprise world, then your performance is going to be degraded. But in the typical situation where, let's say, you're running a game in one side of the world while you've got email running in the other in your enterprise world, you're not going to see any performance.
Users won't perceive it.
Your users won't see it at all.
Okay. Now, in terms of memory usage, we could see a little bit of a memory hit from this.
Absolutely. There's going to be some more memory requirements. But if you look at smartphones today, they're already at 1 gigabyte. They're moving to 2 gigabytes probably in 2013. So yes, it's going to take a bit more of your memory, but it's not going to have a major impact on your smartphone.
Okay. How about in terms of cost of the device? Will there be any impact on the actual cost of the phone itself?
So the actual impact in hardware of implementing this virtualization is about 1 to 2% of the CPU. So if you were looking at silicon cost, it would be about 1 to 2 cents worst case. So it's, from the end user perspective, it's peanuts.
Okay. And so from the enterprise point of view, obviously there's some products out there right now that are offering sandboxes now. The major difference here is that this is done in hardware and therefore has a greater level of security assurance?
Absolutely. So this is really the sort of next generation technology, really providing that hardware protection between the virtualized worlds rather than trying to do it purely in software, which is more prone to be broken.
Okay. But what we're not likely to see, for example, is an Android, iPhone 8, Windows device that can run it all.
I can't see these companies working together on such a project, and it would be just confusing for the consumer.
But if they wanted to, ARM would provide the technology that could make it happen.
Absolutely. If someone wants to do such a project,
please go ahead and use the Cortex-A15 to achieve this.
Okay. So there you have it. Coming to a phone near you in the near future, maybe this year, maybe early next year. David, back to you.
Thanks. All right. Well, when we come back, we have Zynga Chief Technology Officer Alan Linewan.
Zynga Incorporated is the world's leading provider of social game services with more than 240 million monthly active users playing its games, which include Cityville, Zynga Poker, Draw Something, Farmville, Castleville, Words with Friends, to name just a few. Zynga's games are available on a number of global platforms, including Facebook, Zynga.com, Google+, Tencent, Apple iOS, and Google Android. Through Zynga.org, Zynga players have raised more than $10 million for world social causes. Please welcome Zynga's CTO, Alan Linewan.
Alan, thanks very much for joining us here on the show. Great to have you.
Thank you very much.
Great to have Zynga here. So, we were searching through your background, and we found a quote that you had put out there, and I wanted to ask you about that quote, and it has to do with something that you guys are calling zCloud. You wrote, you said, we own the base and rent the spike.
That's right.
So what does that mean, and how does it relate to zCloud and what's zCloud all about?
Sure. Let me take you back a little bit and tell you how we build infrastructure at Zynga. And first of all, I'll start out by saying that Zynga is all about play. We want play to be a verb. We want part of daily people's lives. We want to be able to play. And we want people to think about search on Google and share on Facebook and shop on Amazon and play on Zynga.
Play games. We're talking about social games.
That's right.
So a couple of them, just for those of you who've been for those of you who've been hiding under a rock. Okay, the games are.
Farmville is one of our more popular games. Hopefully, I can stop everyone from playing Words with Friends, which is another one of our games that we have. Cityville, Castleville, Draw Something is one of the games that we've recently acquired that's part of our platform now.
Right.
And those are some of the social games that, as you mentioned, 240 million people play on a monthly basis.
Okay.
But what zCloud is. So when we have these games, people see these games as fun. They see them as playing new words on Words with Friends. They see them as unscrabbling things in Scrabble with Friends. They see them playing people in chess, etc. What those really are is live services. And those live services really require infrastructure in order to run, to be available. We want our games to be social. We want them to be fun. And we want them to be available from anyone on any device, whether it's a mobile phone, an iPad, or a browser. And all that availability and all that fun actually takes infrastructure on the back end. And Zynga as a company started building infrastructure in a fairly traditional way. We bought servers, we put them in cages, we started to rack and stack them. That was back in 2007 with games like Zynga Poker. And what we found is we had this inflection point actually in 2009 with Farmville. Farmville actually grew from 0 to 10 million daily active players in the first 5 weeks. Eventually grew to 25 million people playing Farmville in the first 5 months on a daily basis. And we realized that traditional IT ways of actually scaling infrastructure, buying servers, buying bandwidth, buying storage connectivity, wasn't going to scale at the rate we were scaling it. So we moved to the public cloud. And we moved to Amazon Web Services, and we continue to launch and scale games that way. And we continue to use the public cloud and to rent our services, if you will, over a period of time, including launching of games like Cafe World and Cityville, which was one of the fastest growing games at the time. But during that time period, we realized that we were renting that infrastructure instead of owning it. And we realized that if we could look at the way our games were growing, look at the way people were having fun on the infrastructure, we could actually plot the curve of that infrastructure growth. And if we could get ahead of that infrastructure curve just a little bit, then what we would end up being able to do is build that house, own it on our own. So we ended up building something we call zCloud. And zCloud is private infrastructure that's owned by Zynga that looks and operates like a public cloud, but it's our own private cloud. We also did something fairly unique. First of all, we built zCloud from proof of concept to actually launching a live game in 6 months. And we did that in the first part of 2011. Also, while doing that in 2011, we ended up coupling our private zCloud with the public cloud in a strategy that a lot of people thought was very innovative called the hybrid cloud. We had direct connections between Amazon and Zynga. We had ability to monitor and manage games and move workloads between the public and the private as we saw we needed to do that.
Which game was that, by the way?
We actually are able to do that on a variety of our games and services.
Which one did you launch in 6 months using that?
From the time that zCloud actually was a proof of concept to the time we actually launched it at the first live game, that was Cityville Hometown, which was in June of 2011. And we started on a smaller mobile game to sort of get our feet wet and understand how the private cloud would operate. And then we continued to scale. We actually also launched Castleville, which is now the fastest growing game to date. Castleville went from 0 to 5 million daily active players in 6 days. That was launched exclusively on zCloud. We did that, I think that was in November of 2011.
Okay, and then zCloud now is a platform that you're offering for others to use?
That's right. There's been an interesting evolution of what we've done. So if you think about what we did in 2011, we had 20% of our players playing on zCloud, private zCloud, and 80% of our players playing on Amazon. That hybrid cloud mix in January of 2011 was 20/80. But by the end of the year, we actually had it at 80/20. So we actually took a lot of those players and we took them off of the public cloud, brought them onto the private cloud, owned the base, if you will, and then continued to flex and scale as we saw fit. We've now reached that point where actually over 80% of, hopefully those of you in the room playing Zynga games, are playing on zCloud. Now, to your question about offering that up. It's an interesting way that Zynga actually consumes services. Zynga is a games company. And I spend a lot of time talking about infrastructure and talking about cloud computing and talking about how it's flexible and scalable and exciting. But Zynga, by definition, is about making games that people love to play. So it's my job to make sure that our game designers, our creators, our developers don't care about infrastructure. They shouldn't have to care about servers. They shouldn't have to care about data centers and deployments and Amazon. What they should care about is making new features, new social fun that you can have in the game. So we really work exceptionally hard to extract out and build services on top of zCloud that our games themselves consume. Games consume services like statistics and analytics and payments and social feeds and connection to the social networks. And those are all services that layer on top of zCloud that our studios consume. What we've announced recently is something called the Zynga platform. What the Zynga platform is an expansion of those services, which will then be extended to third-party gaming developers. And those third-party gaming developers could then leverage those social services as well.
So the target audience is gaming developers.
That's
it's
right.
not just any old enterprise who wants
right.
to use you guys instead of Amazon.
Yeah, we don't have an intention of going after the generic cloud computing hosting market. What we want to do is we want to make games more social. We want to make games more fun. We want to offer a platform of services that will deliver making a game that might be a single-person game in a single environment. Well, now you want to make it social. You want to chat like you do in Words with Friends. You want to have leaderboards. You want to be able to publish to social network feeds. You want to be able to make your game a social game. Well, those are services that Zynga could offer to you via our publishing and our platform that rides on top of our zCloud
Built-in part of the platform. So, for example, OpenGraph, Facebook's OpenGraph, the developer doesn't have to worry about OpenGraph itself. You kind of bake it in so that they can just focus on the features of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a Facebook service, OpenGraph and Facebook service to get to the social network and the social graph. We would be offering services that would make games more social.
And speaking of feeding it into social feeds, you mentioned that earlier. You just mentioned that a minute ago. You transitioned Cityville at some point from working just with Facebook to working with Google+. So kind of curious, that's a big move. Google+ is obviously sort of an upstart in the social networking world, trying to take on Facebook and Twitter. How do you guys view Google+ against the entrenched Twitter and Facebook?
Well, from our point of view, it's all about getting access to players and making sure that players have a place to play. So whether they're playing on Social Network 1 or Social Network 2, from our perspective, we want to make sure that our games are there, they're accessible, they're fun, and they're social.
But Google+ has to reach some critical mass for you to take notice and actually invest time in it. What provoked you to actually go for it?
Well, I think the main thing for us, again, is just access to players. As people continue to want to expand their social circles, as they continue to want to play on different social networks, we want Zynga games to be there.
Any lessons? I mean, you're an IT guy, and our audience is primarily an IT audience. So when you think about all of the things that you've gone through, especially building a hybrid cloud, building to own, renting the spike, what are the lessons for our audience members in terms of how they build their infrastructures to scale well?
Well, one of the things I think that's an interesting lesson is cloud computing came on the scene maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I think the IT industry has itself sort of recoiled a little bit. They kind of went, oh no, I'm being outsourced. Cloud computing is going to take over the traditional IT model. They're going to host my servers and host my network. But I hearken back to 10 or 15 years ago when content distribution networks became into being. When CDNs first came out, people thought, you know what, we're not going to need to host things inside of the IT data center anymore. It's all going to be served from the edge. Well, guess what? It didn't really turn out that way. How it turned out is CDNs ended up becoming shock absorbers, becoming burstable, becoming able to leverage infrastructure at the edge to work in unison with the origin servers. And I think people should embrace cloud computing that way. We think the hybrid cloud, the combination of public and private, owning that base, tuning that base, making that base actually custom built for your application, and using the public cloud as something that is there to expand into, to make sure that when you have these, as we call them in Zynga speak, moments of delight and player delight exist, that they're going to be there and that public cloud can do that. I think the lesson is really continue to be flexible, continue to use these tools as vehicles, and continue to think about how do you embrace these technologies and use them in a common IT environment.
Final topic.
Sure.
Big data. You're a company built around social.
Yeah.
You have to be consuming a lot of social data and trying to understand your customers. How is Zynga using big data?
Yeah, for Zynga, using big data, and we do a lot of big data because we have a lot of big games. And for us, big data is about understanding what the players are doing on the platform and tuning the platform and tuning our games to match the needs of those players. We collect data around demographics. We collect data around what players are doing within the games. We collect statistics around what features perhaps are more viral and what features perhaps people are using, whether they like the purple cows better than the blue cows, and we keep track of all that. You know, one of my favorite big data stats is during the holiday season last year, we actually outscored Santa Claus by 3 times. So we actually sent 36 billion gifts during the holiday season in 2011. And here's how we figured out we're bigger than Santa Claus. We said, okay, there's 2.2 billion kids on the planet. And if Santa Claus is generous and he gives 6 gifts to each kid, that's roughly 13 billion gifts globally. So we did about 3x that. Of course, you have to assume Santa Claus exists, and he, non-discriminate against all religions. So,
and that's watching.
And that doesn't include the number of kilojoules that his reindeer burned getting around the world and all that, right?
That's a big data number 2.
That's a big data number 2. Okay, well, Alan Leinwand, CTO for Zynga, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay, when we come back, Fritz and I will join our in-studio audience where we will be able to randomly pull a startup out of the audience to give us their best elevator pitch. Not only give Fritz and I that elevator pitch, but give it to you as well. And then we will give away some cool gear, not only to members of our in-studio audience, but to some of you online.
Since its debut in 2007, Internet Evolution has become the de facto source for independent opinion and analysis of next-gen Internet technology and its impact on business, society, and the future. Always on and always relevant, Internet Evolution's unique editorial voice and unstinting commitment to debunking the hype and hoopla around Internet technology makes it a must-read for its audience of information professionals.
Information Week produces over 200 in-depth reports each year, with industry-leading information, including our Impact Report, outlining the top 5 mobile security threats, our 2012 Enterprise Social Networking Research Report, and our 2012 Research Report on Business Intelligence and Information Management. Our mission is to help you make informed buying decisions. Registration is free, access to content is unlimited, and is a must-have for all IT professionals.
Well, welcome back to Information Week's Valley View. This is the fun part of the show. We feature 2 startups that we've randomly selected from our in-studio audience, maybe not startups, sometimes they're bigger companies, to give us their best elevator pitch. Why should you, the members of our audience, really care about doing business with them? Why should Fritz and I want to write about them on Information Week? And then we're also going to give away some cool gear. Now, in order to get on the show and get randomly selected for this segment of the show, you have to come to the live taping of Information Week's Valley View. You have to be here. And obviously, it's too late to get to this particular show, but we have 2 more shows coming up that are scheduled. We have one on May 23rd, and then another one on June 26th. Those are both here in our San Francisco-based headquarters at 303 2nd Street, right here in the middle of the Soma district. So, Fritz, we're going to first start with one of the companies that we've picked out of the fishbowl, so to say. Who's up first?
Okay, the first company is Aurasma, and we've got Lauren Offers, who's the Director of Marketing. Lauren, do you want to? Oh,
so
you're
Lauren.
Right here.
Lauren's right in front.
Great. Stand up.
Okay. Come on up here, Lauren.
We'll talk a little bit about Aurasma now. Before we get to the elevator pitch, I just want to understand, because I do know a little bit about Aurasma. You guys are an autonomy company, and autonomy is owned by HP. Have I got the lineage right?
You do, yes, that's correct.
Okay, so 30 seconds or less. what's the elevator pitch for Erasma?
Sure. So Erasma is the world's leading augmented reality platform that really changes the way we view and interact with the world. So we are all carrying around these mobile devices now, whether it's an Android or an iPhone, and you can now point at print, products, even physical places, and really discover all the information that's kind of woven into the fabrics of the real world. So we're working with a number of partners across all different industries, and Erasma really sits at the hub of the marketing mix for publishing, sports, entertainment, instructional, educational, advertising. So
now I stumbled across Erasma when I was at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona earlier this year, and the user experience is kind of difficult to describe, but it's very unique. So describe a typical user experience after somebody's put Erasma to work for themselves.
Well, what you'll see is all of a sudden you'll point at, say, the cover of anyone out there that has a $20 bill. If you download Erasma Lite, it's a free app, point to the back of it, you bring it to life, you see animations, you see music, and then you can actually click through to a website. So it's really about immersing yourself and merging the physical with the digital in a whole new way.
Now, I don't know if we could get this, but can you bring up a demo and maybe show your phone to the camera? Can we zoom in and get that? Okay, so we're going to look at this camera here, and oh, you've got a $20 bill. Let's just try that.
All right.
Let's do that. So you're going to point the camera, or I mean the phone at that camera there.
Okay, so we're going to turn around so the camera can have a view of the phone. I'll hold the $20 bill up for you.
Yeah, be careful because he will take that.
So step over a little bit. There we go, and hold the phone up so that the camera can see it. There we go. All right, so.
This is an iPhone, so this is an iPhone
move this
app.
over so you're.
Sorry.
You want to move your. There you go. There you go. Okay.
All right, if you can just hold it taut.
Hold the $20 bill, Fritz. I'll hold the microphone.
All right.
Go ahead.
I've launched the app. I'm pointing at it. And what you're seeing, if you can, okay, is it's starting to deconstruct the $20. I'm pulling back a little bit here so you can.
Oh, wow. It's taking the words right off the bill, making the flag fly.
And so I can actually double tap and bring it full screen so I can disengage with that 20 throughout the process as it's coming to life. Okay. So I see that.
Okay, and so this is for companies to market their products, maybe?
I mean, that's one use case, but also newspapers are using it to allow you to, have updated news content. So gets printed at 3 a.m. in the morning, but the story develops throughout the course of the day. And so now you can go back to it and get updated news feeds, instruction manuals. So now when you have, that flat pack furniture you don't know how to set up, or, a router, for instance, you point to the back of it, and that can actually give you visual instructions associated with it. So.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'll give you your $20 bill back. Appreciate just holding it. And that is Erasma.
Thanks,
very
Lauren.
well. Very
Thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Again, you managed to get on the show through the back door, so to say, so everybody who gets on the show does get an Information Week Valley View mug. Again, if you want to get on the show, all you have to do is show up, and hopefully you get randomly picked, or you can pitch Fritz or I on Twitter. Fritz is at F. Nelson, and I'm at D. Berlin. Okay, so we have another company that has been randomly selected from our fishbowl for the elevator. By the way, that was a little more than an elevator pitch. I mean, unless that was a really tall building, you know. Okay, so who's our next company, Fritz?
Okay, this is not a startup. This is Hitachi, and we have Stephen Harris, who's the Vice President of U.S. Products.
Hitachi.
So I'm sorry, Stefan.
Stefan. All right, here comes Stefan. Come on, jump right in here, Stefan. Hey, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
David.
So, Hitachi, obviously we were hoping for a startup and we got Hitachi, but Hitachi's kind of a name that you just don't hear a lot about in the IT space. So I'm sure there's a couple IT professionals out there going, what are you, crazy? We have a $30 million budget with Hitachi, but we don't hear a lot about Hitachi. So tell us, give us your elevator
absolutely.
pitch.
Well, get ready because you will hear more about Hitachi. Hitachi Consulting is a division of Hitachi Limited. Hitachi Consulting was founded in 1999, so fairly new in terms of a management consulting type firm. What you will see is that we have about 5,000 employees. We're growing very rapidly. We have a very strategic initiative to make our presence known in the U.S. market, but also globally. What I primarily focus on is the high-tech vertical of our business, and what that encompasses are internet companies, hardware companies, and software companies that do manufacturing. And in terms of services, we bring all of the standard management consulting services to our customer portfolio, which would include everything from IT strategy to product development. We also do managed services, which would include outsourcing, BPO, and then we also do your standard technology solutions around SAP, Oracle, as well as BI, big data, and mobility.
So suffice to say that you go up against players, IBM Global Services,
absolutely,
Dell,
Dell would be a customer,
HP.
So a customer and maybe a competitor too?
And potentially could be a competitor.
So you're going up against some pretty big guns there.
We do, and we found in the marketplace that companies today are looking for something new. They're looking for companies that can be agile and swift, just like a startup, but bring you all the value of a big company like Hitachi.
Okay. All right.
Great. Well, you don't have a $20 bill demo to do?
No, I was going to borrow.
You can't. It could be like the Verizon commercial where the entire workforce of Hitachi shows up here, and it's just to give a demonstration of prowess.
They're outside the door.
They're outside the door. Okay, Stefan, thanks
so
very
much.
much. Wait a minute, don't run away. You get a mug. All right.
Perfect.
So you get the mug as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take a seat. All right, Fritz. So I'm going to hand you these because those are the winners of our prizes that we give away.
It's
not
prize
only
time.
not only to our in-studio audience, but also to people who are watching online. And I'm going to turn around and pick up two of the prizes here for our in-studio audience. And so we're going to start off with this Looksee. Now, you're a fan of this. You've used the Looksee before. So why don't you tell folks what it is?
Yeah.
I'll hold it up for the camera.
Hold it to that camera
Yeah,
there.
we
The
go.
Looksee is something that you would clip onto a baseball cap or a biking helmet or whatever. It streams video live through Bluetooth to your phone. You can share the link via social networks like Facebook, private links, and people can actually watch things in real time. So you're at your kid's soccer game, or maybe you're doing some mountain biking or something like that, and you want people to see you do it. Maybe if you take a spill, they can call the 911 for you, something like that. But
somebody else is watching and they call on your behalf. That's good.
right,
Yeah.
That's right.
What sort of, how does it connect up to the internet if you're like out and about? Through an iPhone or something like that?
Yeah, it goes through an iPhone and Android phone, and then you create a special link that you could share with just private family and friends.
Okay, and so who is the lucky winner of the Looksee?
All right, I'm going to butcher these names. Chris Ortiz. Did I say it even close to right?
Come on up, come on up here. So what was it? How's the name pronounced? Come on. Crisal Ortiz.
Yes.
And
who are you with?
MSR Communications.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. What you got there?
Well, the only way you can win is by showing up. I just want to keep reminding people that
That's right.
we have lots of free food and booze and all kinds of great people to meet. So come on out to the next one on May 23rd or the one after that. And by the way, the one after that is June 26th, which is coinciding with
Google I/O.
Google I/O. So we'll be at Google I/O there as well. We'll be covering the show, but we'll be coordinating our show here, Valley View, with Google I/O. All right, the next thing we have here is a Roku 2 streaming player. And I'm going to pull that up here. Now, this is really cool. I don't know if everybody knows what it is. We had the box out here earlier, and everybody was asking, what is it for? Well, if you've ever tried to take content from the web and put it on your big screen, it's kind of tough. Like, take an example would be if you're an Amazon customer, use Amazon Prime, you get access to all their video. You have to take your computer, hook it up to your big screen. Well, Roku works with a bunch of partners, not only Amazon, but I don't know if you can get a close look here, Netflix, and they actually just will route that content right onto your big screen for you. You don't need a computer or anything like that. They have a bunch of partners that are listed here, but that's not the limitation. There are many more partners that they work with to get that content onto your big flat screen, and it's a great device. I'm ready to buy one myself because we are Amazon customers at my house, and we have a hard time getting that content on. Also Netflix customers. If you're like me, we've cut the cord. We're paying $100 a month for cable TV. We cut it completely. Now we go through Netflix and Hulu. Hulu's also listed here, and those are each $8 a month. So for $16, we're getting essentially the same thing that we got for $100. All I need is a Roku box to get it on my big screen.
Well, you did not win, so you'll have to buy it. But the person who did win is Diane Tonko.
Diane Tonko. All right. Step right up, Diane. You have to step in the middle before I hand you your prize. All right, Diane. And
it
then,
looks like
who are you
from your badge you're with
Sonic Wall.
Sonic
Great.
Wall. Yes. All right. Well, maybe next time you come back and you'll be randomly selected to do the elevator pitch, no?
All right, maybe I will.
Okay.
That would be awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. All right. So next up, we are going to give away 2 prizes to those of you who are watching online. Some of you are watching online, just 2 of you as a matter of fact. The way to win this prize is you have to register ahead of time for Valley View. You have to register to watch it through our streaming format on informationweek.com. The way to do that is to go to informationweek.com/valleyviewregister. So I encourage you, if you don't win today, come back and register, and maybe you'll win next time. So the first prize we have here is very similar to the Roku. This is an Apple TV. I'm going to hold it up for the camera here.
Cute little box.
Cute, tiny box. I never knew that the Apple TV came in such a small box.
Like a Tiffany's box.
Yeah, like a Tiffany's box, just not blue with a nice soft cloth in the middle, no sterling silver in it. But then we also have the cable, because how many times have you purchased something, get it home, open it up, and guess what? You still need a couple more parts to make it work.
Batteries, cables.
There you go. So we've got the cable to make it work with your big screen. So the Apple TV goes to?
Steve Link.
Steve Link. So Steve, if you're watching, we will.
Oh, he's not here, is he?
He's not here. He's in our
online.
He's online. If you're watching, we will contact you and let you know how to collect this. We'll probably send it to you. We'll get your address. One thing, by the way, just so you know, the difference between this and the Roku is that this will access content that's in the iTunes store. That's the one thing the Roku box doesn't do. So the next gift we have, we've been giving away a bunch of these at our Valley Views, is the Amazon Kindle Fire, the toughest competition that Apple has going right now for the iPad. I'm not going to turn it on. It's still in its plastic wrap. We want to send it to the audience member who wins it completely new and fresh, no fingerprints. So who is the winner of this particular device?
Brandon Johnson.
Brandon Johnson. There, I'm holding up the Kindle Fire.
Congratulations, Brandon.
Okay. So Brandon, we will be in touch with you on how to win this device. Again, we invite everybody to join us at the next Valley View here. You can come to be a member of our in-studio audience at our Soma-based headquarters. A lot of information about how to do that. Just go to Information Week Valley View, informationweek.com/Valley View register, and we'll see you next time. For Information Week Valley View, I'm David Berlin.
And I'm Fritz Nelson.
Thanks for joining us.